Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are with Steve Burkett. Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Actually, it's actually pronounced Burkett, but
Ah,
everybody, I'm used to everybody in the South says Burkett, and so I'm used to it.
I'm a Yankee. So, born in
Well, see,
Chicago.
and so am I. I mean, I grew up in New Jersey, and my whole family's from New Jersey.
Oh, okay. Where in New Jersey did you live?
I grew up in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Went to Elizabeth High School. My mom and dad still live there. I've got a brother in New York who is a news journalist with WABC Channel 7 in New York. He's been there almost 30 years. Um, and yeah, that's where I'm from.
But does this count you as a Giants fan then?
No, oddly enough, I grew up a Miami Dolphins fan.
Wow, wow. That's how'd you manage that?
I just, I just can't stand Jets fans, so I figured I'd take the rivals. No, I'm kidding. No, actually, in all honesty, my uncle jumped on the bandwagon in the '70s with Greasy and the Perfect Season, and so he was the big football nut in the family, and so I used to sit and watch games, football games, watching Dan Marino and Ken O'Brien, launching it out together as a kid, and so. I just kind of grew up watching Marino, and how could you not like that guy? I mean, unless you were a Jets fan and he was torching you.
Right, right,
Um,
absolutely.
so that's kind of how I grew up a Dolphins fan.
How did we? How did you come to develop iScout?
Well, I've been doing Army defense contracting for over a decade. In fact, I started at Fort Monmouth in New Jersey, where I was at for about 10 years before moving down here to Huntsville, Alabama to work at Redstone Arsenal. And so, what a lot of people don't know is I've got a defense contracting company called SL1,
Hmm.
which you can look up. It's sl1-inc.us, and it tells you a little bit about what we do. But we've been supporting Army Air Defense and Army Aviation, and we've actually got a product called RACE, RACE. And of course, with the military, everything's an acronym. And so basically, what we did was RACE is an acronym for Real Time Analysis Collaboration Environment, a collaborative environment. And so that really is iScout. It's iScout designed for the military. And basically what we're doing is we're using race to analyze and evaluate military intelligence in the process of evaluating for capability gaps. And so really that's where that translation into football came. The long story short is when I moved down here to Huntsville, I was looking for a football team to follow. And so the local team was the Arena League, which was the Tennessee Valley Vipers. So our defense company had sponsored the Vipers as a corporate sponsor. I got to know the guys there, the coaches, and I've got an entrepreneurial mind. I'm always trying to think of new things, and so I got into talking with the coach, and I said, how do you do your evaluations? How do you evaluate guys for your team, your personnel? How do you evaluate the other teams in game preparation? And saw that there was a technology gap that we could fill with Race by converting Race over into iScout. And so that's kind of what we did, and it worked out well for them. They ended up winning an Arena Cup that year, and so then I started tapping into the NFL and reaching out to people, and that's when I met my current partner, former Denver Broncos general manager Ted Sundquist, and Ted really helped me beef up the front end of the software to really help to establish and capture the information that a professional team would be looking for. And so that's where we brought in his expertise from the football side of things, my expertise from the evaluation analysis side, and combined the two to create the product.
Talk about the product before we talk about the whole Niners situation. What is iScout?
Yeah. Well, basically, the whole idea is it's the same as it really is the same as the military. And I don't mean to keep going back, but you've got a situation where when you go into battle, the commander that is responsible for a specific area, they say AOI, area of interest, is every colonel, every commander fights their battles differently, and they all want different information in order to make their decisions. It's the same thing in the NFL when you're looking at a general manager. General managers like to have, they all have different things that they're looking for. So the idea was, there may be some other types of scouting solutions out there, mainly on the recruiting side in college. There really isn't any professional until iScout came along. But what it does is they all paint you into a box, and you've got information that you must fill out. And if you don't fill that out, you don't have all the information, and so your data is not as good, and there's not much flexibility to it. And so what we did is we sat down and created our own algorithm, methods, and system for evaluation that is generic in a sense that it allows every organization to customize what's important to them without having to come back to us to ask for new code, to have to write code specific for them. So if they can dream it, they can create it. They don't have to come back to us and ask for new code. And so we took that generic framework and that process and method, which is unique. We hired a patent attorney, did a patent search, found that no one else had filed a patent for a system and process for evaluating athletic ability. And so we submitted ours, and iScout is now in patent pending.
How did you find out? How did you come to contact the 49ers or establish some, or try to at least?
Well, iScout's been around since 2010, and I've been to the Senior Bowl a number of times since 2010, every year since 2010, where I've had an opportunity to meet with and talk to. Up to this point, I've met with someone from every single organization of all 32 teams, including I've also met with National Football Scouting, which represents 21 of the 32 teams for scouting. And of course, National is the nonprofit organization that puts on the Indianapolis Combine every year. And so we've begun meeting and talking with these folks, collecting contact information, following up, your typical marketing strategies.
Right.
And so it started in November of 2011, where I sent the 49ers front office, Trent Baalke, of course, he's the GM, right. Jim Harbaugh, the coach, and I believe their IT director, I forget his name, but I sent them all a
chief operating officer, or the Pamash, or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm. I can look, but I sent them the information about iScout, and basically I said it was right at Thanksgiving time, so I sent them, Happy Thanksgiving from iScout, and
this was Thanksgiving 2012, right?
No, this was November of 2011.
Okay. Just want to get the dates straight. Okay.
And at that point, I laid out in the email a bunch of our trade secrets that said, here's how it's done, here's what we do, and I got into some things that were not public knowledge. I hadn't discussed with anyone else. Didn't put any disclaimer on that email. And then the next step was in 2012, March of 2012, I sent another email to the same folks with a flyer that had a couple screen captures of our program, with again some more detailed information, and telling them that we would love to do business with them and to give us a call, contact us, that kind of thing, typical marketing. Fast forward to March 2013. SAP Corporation puts out a press release that they have now created a product that is a very much description from their press release. It sounds very much like the same trade secrets that I had provided to the 49ers. It sounds like they had created a competing product. And, the interesting thing is when you look at those trade secrets, those things that we've done, there's no way in the world that some IT computer programming guys at SAP were sitting around brainstorming one day and said, "Hey, let's do this for the 49ers."
Yeah, it is pretty esoteric.
There's just too much. It's all way too curious, and so so then basically. So the next step was, I was curious. Let me find out, is this really a coincidence or not? So we went in and pulled our web logs, and so I had a cyber expert course working in the defense industry. I've got access to tons of cyber experts that do red team, black team, all this penetration testing and things like that for networks and military to protect them. So I passed along those web logs to the cyber guy, who extracted a number of from the day that I sent the email to the 49ers shows I think 3 or 4 times that that someone had accessed our website from the San Francisco area. It was on a mobile device, so I can't pinpoint it back to the 49ers organization. It's only safe to assume that the timing of it with the email to the 49ers and then the link to the website seems to indicate that that's what happened. They got the email on their phone, looked at it, hit the link to the website, visited the site, checked it out.
Were you able to pinpoint that from a localization perspective?
Yeah, well, it goes back to specifically to the San Francisco area. Now, what I can do is the very next day in March of 2012, the very next day, I can show the web logs that SAP Corporation geolocated directly to their office in Palo Alto, California, accessed our website over 40 times.
Wait, time out. They're in Palo Alto?
They're in Palo Alto.
Do you know anything about the Bay Area at all?
No.
Okay. Palo Alto and the 49er headquarters in Santa Clara, they're only 3 miles apart.
Oh, okay. See, I wouldn't know that.
So it would have been very easy for them to get together over lunch or to have a conversation, since their offices are, from a proximity perspective, so close.
Right. So basically, the cyber guy, because those IP addresses did come from the business location, we were actually able to reverse engineer, reverse trace that stuff back to the specific latitude, longitude coordinates that point directly to the Palo Alto office. And that was 40 times the next day. And then after that, on the next day after that, we now have where they had set up a web crawler, an automated crawler, to scan my website once a day, every day, to see if there's been any updates or changes. And so you can see the web bot on the site hitting it from their IP address every day for an entire year between March 2012 and March 2013, when they announced their press release of a competing product.
Well, are you alleging then they are also grabbing, for example, JPEGs, anything else that might be on your site, which one can do easily?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot on our site, but between going back to the military again, one of the things they teach us from a securities perspective is that we have to be careful with our unclassified information, because spies and terrorists, those types of things, have been known to go out and try to collect as much of the unclassified information.
Hey, Steve, hold on a second, because
Hey,
that's sun duties.
Oh, no problem.
Okay, so now we're picking up right here. All right, so Steve, continue. You were talking about the product and the 49ers and what you discovered and your colleagues with the revelation that they were snooping around your website, right?
Exactly, and so basically to just to reiterate we went back through the cyber logs and were able to geolocate back to the SAP Palo Alto office, which showed that the day after I sent that intellectual property to the 49ers, the website shows 40 hits directly from the SAP office. And then following that was this automated bot. And so, just a minute ago, I was explaining how in the Army, what they do is they use, they'll go out, our enemies will go out and try to collect a multitude of unclassified information and try to pull it together to create what was originally classified. And so that's a common practice, actually. And so that's why we, as a military, need to be very careful about what we put out as unclassified, because sometimes when you put it together, now you're telling the story that's really classified. And so it's a similar situation to what I feel happened with us, is that we gave some of the unclassified but protected information to the 49ers. SAP went and got the information from our website that was open, available, public information. But when you combine the two, it starts to tell the story about what our product is really doing. Now, the interesting thing is that the press releases that I've seen from SAP have indicated that that their product is a work in progress.
Right, it's very vague.
Still being developed. And I believe that's because they haven't figured out the actual technical side of what it is that we're doing. And so I'm not sure that they have a full, complete product. And if they do have a product that even remotely does what we do, where they're going to have an issue, and I say this because I've been involved in programming and code and things like this for so many years, that I believe that if they write code just for the 49ers and say, here's the 49ers product, and then let's say Jeff Ireland from the Miami Dolphins calls them up and says, hey guys, that's really great, I want that too. They're going to have to go and spend months sitting down with Jeff and going through what they're doing and then writing code to program a new product for the 49ers, and so on and so on. So now the big question, as you may know, when you develop software,
right,
one of the biggest things you have to know how to do is support it.
Yep.
And so what happens now if you've got 32 clubs using 32 different customized programs? They call up for support. You're going to get the tech support guy going, hey, which one of you guys knows the 49ers product? Hey, which one of you guys knows the Dolphins product? I got Jeff on the phone. That's how it's going to be. But it's not that way with iScout. It is the same product for every single team, but is able to be customized to the team's specific information within an hour. I can sit down with any GM of any of the 32 teams and have iScout coded for them and what they do within an hour, without having to sit and write code.
For the lay person, without giving away too much, what exactly does it do?
Well, I mean, I said our product is patent pending, the systems, methods, and process. So I'm a little bit more comfortable about talking about what we do. Mm-hmm. And so let's dig into it a little bit. Here's the thing. As I said, every evaluator is looking for something different. So it's easy to say, okay, well, we'll just code for whatever you look for. Let's height, weight, speed, those types of things. You may get into some of the specific things, with regards to hips and feet movement and the ability to throw the deep ball, whatever, those types of things that you may track. But what is unique is that most teams track all the same things. I mean, every team tracks height, weight, speed. But let me ask you a question. Do you think every general manager in the football league puts the same importance to height, weight, and speed? Or do you think
that's not the case?
I'm sorry?
I know that's not the case.
No, because some will like guys that are taller than are faster. Some guys like faster guys than taller guys. So you have to be able to apply a weight to what's important to you. So not only do we allow them to customize the system to track what it is that's important to them, but we allow them to establish a weight. And by adding a weight to each of the different parameters, specifics, and factors to what is important to you on a grading scale, it now on the back end builds that algorithm so that the data coming in is generic. It passes through your algorithm that you've now created, and on the outside, it is your player pool that is unique and specific to what you're looking for. And so the idea is if you're a member of National Football Scouting, if you're one of those teams, you get a grade set in the spring, you get a grade set in the fall. When that grade set comes in, if you can put it into your system into iScout, now all that code, those grades and information that is generic, not to any specific team, those grades can now pass through your criteria or your QA, and out on the other side will be a list of which players and ranked in what order according to what you said you're looking for. So you don't have to sit there and spend hours and weeks and days upon days going through all of these reports. In fact, I've heard that a lot of teams don't necessarily look at those grades so much. They use that data for much more information. Some of the interviews and medical information, contact information, and all those different things. And they don't use the grades that much.
Yeah, it sounds like the 21st century variant of what the Dallas Cowboys were doing with IBM in the 70s.
That may be. And and the interesting thing, one of the very first people that I met with about iScout was Jerry Jones.
Uh-huh.
And it was the 2011 Senior Bowl. I was coming out of the weigh-ins that morning. I forget what day it was. I think it was a Sunday morning or something. They were doing the weigh-ins. No, it wasn't Sunday. Monday morning or something. It was Monday morning. We're coming out, and there's a bunch of reporters walking with Jerry Jones talking to him. And once the reporters kind of faded away, I went up and introduced myself and told them briefly about iScout. And he asked me a couple of questions, and he took my card, and he said he'd have somebody call me. And, of course, left and went on. I did not expect to hear from anybody. But the very next day, I got a call from Alan Larkin, who is their IT guy at the Cowboys. And, I think that was Alan. But anyway, so Alan calls me up the next day, and so I talked with him for a while. He put me in touch with Todd Williams, who is their director of administration, who happened to be at the Senior Bowl. And excuse me. And so we talked in the stands at the Senior Bowl for, I don't know, maybe an hour. Took some information, went back. I didn't hear back from them again, though I've maintained marketing contact with them. And then not this Senior Bowl, so this was the 2012 Senior Bowl. I saw Jerry again. Jerry spent about a good amount of time with me. I don't remember exactly how long, but he spent more time with me talking about it. And we again changed pleasantries and went on. But so the Cowboys was a team that has shown interest. I think iScout, we haven't really taken off and have really hit the market well from a sales perspective. And I think that's because, we're a fairly new company. We're somewhat of an unknown, and that's a difficult market to get into, especially when you're talking about things that are not familiar.
Hey, I'm curious, what did the 49ers try to contact you, or did you have any contact with them or their lawyers or SAP or anybody else? Or
The 49ers have never answered me. I've sent them information, like I said, through email, and they never contacted me back. SAP, I had my attorney contact them, and we had a phone call with their attorney, Jim Zhang, from Palo Alto office. Actually, he's their IP guy there, and and we talked for about an hour and a half, and essentially, he was blowing it off, saying that there was no issue, they hadn't done anything wrong, and he didn't know what we were talking about. And when I asked him, well, then how can you explain why SAP's been on my office, some 300 times in a year prior to their release of their product? And I believe his response was that this was an attempt at going to a website just like you would go to the Wall Street Journal to read the finance report, and he blew it off that we're
That's
just
a compliment to you. He's
we're-
getting data. Finance reports have data, right?
Yeah, there you go. That's a good point. So he really didn't see, if we were contacting you, and I don't know that we have. He says, you say we were on your website. I don't know that we were, and I'm sitting there saying, well, yeah, I do. I've got your IP addresses.
So I'm curious, just so we can tighten this up and make
Yeah,
a
sure.
video that's uploadable.
Yeah.
Where have you left it with the 49ers, and how come, I'm curious, they didn't say, hey, look, we should all work together, because it sounds like that would be the logical conclusion.
Absolutely, and that's why we initially contacted SAP directly without going public. We kept it private and quiet, wanting to deal with them directly. Hey, look, it sounds like you don't have a finished product just yet. It's still a work in progress. Ours is done and ready to go. Let's work out a licensing deal, and let's do this together.
Right.
Done deal. We have not contacted the 49ers, and the reason for that is that I honestly don't think that the 49ers did anything intentional. I don't think it was anything that was malicious. I think, they were in a situation where, with the announcement of SAP signing the deal with them for the stadium,
Right.
I assume that they have an exclusive software agreement with SAP. And so, if Trent Baalke and they decided that they really liked what we had to say about iScout, and they say, hey, we'd like to use this. Well, I say, well, we can't. We're tied to SAP. Well, can SAP do this? Because if they can, I want to go to iScout.
Well, see, my question is, it sounds like, I'm just going to hazard a guess that SAP
Sure.
didn't tell the Niners about iScout, and that, or if they did, maybe it was somebody at the 49ers that's, I'm just speculating,
Yeah.
holding some information from somebody else at the 49ers. My point is that it sounded to me like we needed a champion of the 49ers to then say to SAP, hey, we've got a situation with SAP. We need your help in straightening it out.
And that's exactly. I sent an email to my partner Ted Senquist today, in fact, and I said to Ted, that I think at this point I'm going to go ahead and draft up an email to send to Trent Baalke at the 49ers and just explain the situation to him. And there's again, I don't want any issues with the 49ers. I want to do business with the NFL. I'm not trying to commit business suicide, by creating any accusations of that sort. But from an SAP's perspective, if you check the books, check the records, they have done this kind of thing before. And recently they just lost a $391 million patent infringement case where they had done the same kind of thing to another small business and infringed on their patent, and they lost. They lost against Oracle as well because they had stolen some of Oracle's information. And so, and I think even Microsoft as well. And so there's a history that shows that SAP has done this kind of thing before. And so what I was saying before is even if the 49ers said, hey, SAP, here's this thing iScout that's really cool. We'd like to be able to do this also. You're our guys. Can you help us? And they look at it, and said, well, yeah, we can do that too. And so they take it and they run off and they start doing this. And the 49ers are thinking back, great, look, hey, SAP just came back with something that looks like what we liked. And so they're moving forward. Never any malicious thoughts that it might be detrimental to iScout, there might be some infringement or copyright issues or any of that. But SAP, I think, very well knew what they were doing when they were started researching my website over a year ago.
So, in closing, anyone watching this, not just with the NFL, but maybe NCAA, wants to talk to you or use iScout, how do they contact you?
The best thing to do is to call me direct. My cell phone's available all the time. I'm text, email, call, Twitter. I'm always available. I would like to make myself resourceful. My cell phone number is 256-270-3116. And my email address is very easy. It's steve@i-scout.com. So STEVE at EYE-SCOUT.com. And then the Twitter is Steve_Burkett. So that's Steve_BURKETT.
Wow, what a tangled web. Hey, Steve, thanks a lot.
I really appreciate the time, and thank you.